How does that work?
Rolling.
Let me know when you hit the start.
Good luck.
All right. So, I had this memory the other day of a moment where I can remember my mom saying to me, just wait until your dad comes home. And it sticks in my mind because my dad was not the disciplinarian in my house. So for her to say, hey, wait until dad comes home and we'll talk about this then, that put me into absolute anxiety of what's going to happen. Maybe for you, that's that moment of maybe you got called to the principal's office and you had to sit in that chair outside the principal's office and you're waiting to be brought into the room. Those moments in that time of waiting, when you understand that there is going to be a consequence to your actions, but you don't know exactly what it's going to be, and you start spiraling in your head of what that might look like. Or how do I get away with what I just did? How do I justify what just happened? And all of a sudden you start to spiral and spiral and spiral because you know there's an expectation and an outcome that is going to happen. So how do we better that situation? I think that's easy for us to identify with sometimes when we look at what we did. It's difficult when it's something out of our control. I can remember sitting in the principal's office waiting to go in after my cousin broke my nose in 5th grade. I did nothing wrong, but I'm still sitting outside that door, still wondering what's going to happen to me in this moment. How do I present myself well? And that's a moment that I think we see in our reading today as we look in 2 Samuel chapter 9, as Mephibosheth, I struggle with this word every time. Mephibosheth, he's Saul's grandson. And he's being called to come to the new king's court and sit in front of David when his grandfather was the last king, and he's called and he has to travel and he has to figure out what's going on. I can imagine him waiting for his moment before the king, and he knows what's expected in that time frame. He knows in this time frame of history, when there's a change in leader, a change in king, it's expected that all of those that are in the bloodline of the last reign to be murdered, to be killed and eliminated. And he's now going to go sit in front of that king. He knows what's expected. Yet when we read this, we see it not from his perspective, but David's perspective, and what David intended. So we see a different picture. This is what we read in picking up in chapter 9. One day David asked, is anyone in Saul's family still alive? Anyone whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? He summoned a man named Ziba, who had been one of Saul's servants. Are you Ziba? The king asked. Yes, sir, I am, Ziba replied. Then the king asked him, is anyone still alive from Saul's family? If so, I want to show kindness to them. Ziba replied, yes, one of Jonathan's sons is still alive. He is crippled in both feet. Where is he? The king asked. In Lo Debar. Ziba told him. At the moment, at the home of Machir and the son of Ammon. So David sent to him and brought him from Machir's home. His name was Mephibosheth. He was Jonathan's son and Saul's grandson. When he came to David, he bowed low in deep respect. David said, greetings, Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth replied, I am your servant. You see, in this moment, he acknowledges who he is, that, man, I'm not supposed to even be here. His response to David is to bow low and say, hey, I'm your servant, and be humble, presenting himself in the best way possible. But David replies, do not be afraid. I intend to show you kindness to you because of my promise to your father, Jonathan. I will give you all the property that once belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will eat here at the king's table. Look at the response here. Mephibosheth bowed respectfully and exclaimed, who is your servant that you should show such kindness to a dead dog like me? Then the king summoned Saul's servant Ziba. He said, I have given you your master's grandson, everything that belongs to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him to produce food for your master's household. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, will eat here at my table. Ziba replied, Yes, my lord the king, I am your servant, and I will do all you have commanded. And from that time on, Mephibosheth regularly ate at David's table, like he was one of the king's own sons. See, it was clear that there was an expectation here, and that expectation is not what he got. See, the fact is that he used his words very intentionally when he gave him comfort. He said, I want to show God's kindness to them. See, David's saying the kindness that God showed me, the forgiveness that God showed me, that he gave me an opportunity, that's going to be my example. Beyond that, when he comforts him, he says, I intend you to show the kindness because of the promise your father made. See, this moment here, he's actually quoting back to 1 Samuel chapter 20, when Jonathan makes an oath of kindness to protect David. He's using his father's oath to say, I'm going to take care of you. Because of the kindness of Jonathan in that relationship, because of the kindness of God in that relationship, he had an example that he leaned on. And he could have just said, I'm going to spare your life. That would have been more than expected. But he went further, knowing those examples that he was given. He said, not only will you be spared, but you will eat at my table. Not only will you eat at my table, but I will treat you like a son. Not only will I treat you like a son and adopted, I will give you your rightful inheritance as well. There's so much in this. But it is in this very picture that we see a forerunner of Christ. That we're like that kid sitting outside the principal's office so often, knowing what we did wrong, knowing where we messed up, wondering what can we do to get away from this? How can I get out of this? How can I present myself the best way possible? But when we come before Christ, he says, no, it's paid. It's covered. Not only that, you're my child. Not only that, you will have the inheritance that I have. See, in Romans chapter 7, Romans chapter 8, we read this picture of being God's children. And in that we read, now if we are children, then we are heirs. Heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. Indeed, we share in his sufferings in order that we may also share in his glory. So my question this morning is to you is, what is your response to that? Do you respond like Mephibosheth, bowing respectfully and exclaiming, who is your servant that you should show such kindness as a dead dog like me? Is your response like Ziba, when he is ordered to go and work the land for this man to benefit that is crippled? And your response is simply, yes, my Lord, I am your servant. I will do all that you have commanded me. Or is your response like David, when you have a rightful claim to take what's yours and you decide to do the opposite and so much beyond that, so that you can represent the love and kindness of God to the people you come in contact with? That's the challenge to you. If God has forgiven you, if God has shown kindness to you, will you show it in the same kind to others, in the same measure to those around you as well?
Do anything on that? Let's stop it.
No.
You want me to?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Well, you want to try it one more time?